We are waiting for the, oh, sorry, wow. We're waiting for, to make sure we have the technology in place and rolling, so we'll just be a moment or two more before we start. Just want to give everybody a heads up. All the tapes ready to go? Yeah. He's just going to come and give the high sign when we get ready to launch. So he just wants to make sure the cameras are set. Would it be possible to be... I'd like to call this meeting of the Clay County Commission to order. We will start this evening with our invocation, but before we do that, I just want to mention that we are live streaming this particular meeting, as we will be doing all of them. We also, obviously within the confines of the regulations of our health centers, we are allowing the public to be present and to make comment, like I say, consistent with the COVID-19 restrictions. So certainly we are happy to be able to do more outreach for our citizens with that. That being said, if you do speak, please remember to identify yourself. We have audio as well as video recordings going on, so that way when they're reviewed, we will be able to identify the speakers. With that, Mr. Administrator, if you would lead us in an invocation.
Pray with me, please. Father, we ask your presence and blessing on this meeting today. We ask that you give us all clear minds and thoughts that are focused on the overall welfare and business of the citizens of this great county. We ask this all in Jesus' blessed name. Amen.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Nolte?
Here.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda, and then if there are any additions, deletions, or any other alterations to our agenda, we will go ahead and take those up. Is there a motion related to approval of our agenda tonight?
Commissioner, I'll move that we approve the agenda for Thursday, February 4th.
Motion has been made for the approval of the agenda. Discussion. I was communicated with members of the Sheriff's Department. They would like to withdraw 2021-36 until a future meeting. They would like to make some technical changes to it. So I would make the motion to amend our agenda by the removal of 2021-36. Discussion? Seeing none. Before we take a vote, I just want to remind those here that we are operating under a new constitution now. I will not be voting except under specific circumstances. Those would be in case of a tie and other specific circumstances. So my non-voting should not be taken as either a endorsement or non-endorsement. It is just the way we do business under the new constitution. With that, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Motion passes. That brings us back to approval of the agenda as amended. Are there any further additions, deletions, or any other changes to our agenda as published? Very well. Commissioner Carpenter, if you would like to make any further comments and close.
Thank you. I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
That brings us to meeting schedule. We don't have anything down for our next meeting. I thought that would be something we might discuss. It occurred to me that perhaps we could meet again, perhaps next Thursday at 10 a.m., but I do want to make sure that there is the availability of the other commissioners, so I don't know that we necessarily needed to put this in there. Mr. Counselor, do you think we should be putting that in as an addition to the actual agenda, or is it enough for us just to announce?
Discussion to identify when the next meeting will be.
Very good. Discussion
I believe next Thursday would work just fine.
at 10 a.m.
I think so.
And in this room, of course. Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you. So absolutely, it works for me in terms of scheduling. I've made the commitment to a lot of folks that I would make a pretty serious effort to get these meetings in the evening. And so to the extent that it's possible, that's certainly my preference going forward, just to give folks the ability to, attend after work. I've heard a number of people over the years talk about how the 10 a.m. meetings can be difficult for people who are, at work during the day. If they want to be able to attend. So, I'm not married to 7 p.m., as we're doing this evening. We could do it at 5:30, we could do it at 6. It doesn't, so that piece doesn't matter to me much. So my position is I'm fine if we want to schedule one more meeting next Thursday at 10. But on a long-term basis, my preference would be to try to do these in the evening.
I think also to address the point that you were making, I think what we need to do is to be able to discuss this and come to some agreement so that we can make a very regular schedule out of it, so there is a degree of predictability about our schedules. But I also hear the same thing about evening meetings, so I would think a good mix of them would be probably in the best interest of the citizens, but that's the discussion for a little bit later. With that, I think we have consensus from the commission that we will be meeting next Thursday, 10 a.m. in this room. Honorary resolutions, there are none listed. There are no public hearings listed. That brings us to the commission session. The first items are, in fact, a group of 3, 2021, 228, 229, and 230 are, I believe, companion issues. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, yes, the 20, 21, 28, 29, and 30 all are pertain to the approval of a subdivision to be known as Tompkins Acres, and Representative of Planning and Zoning are in the room, and I would defer to them for further comment.
Please proceed.
This is Kip Jones, Planning and Zoning Manager. This is a rezoning preliminary and final plat for Tompkins Acres. And Commissioner, are you okay with me being next to the computer?
Yeah, no, we were just discussing that, but no, you're fine back
He's using a
there.
computer.
Because that way you can work the video on the computer, and if we have any questions, you can go to the relevant pages.
So as I stated, this is a rezoning preliminary and final plat. I've got the property pulled up on the big screen there. It's highlighted into the 3 lots. So we have roughly 23.62 acres that the applicant would like to subdivide into 3 lots. The lot 1 in the purple has an existing single-family home on it. It's roughly, it's close to 9 acres. Lot 2 does not have any structures, or Lot 3 does not have any structures. Lot 2 is just over a 5-acre lot, and Lot 3 is about a 7.5-acre lot. So we're taking that 23, almost 24 acres and dividing it into 3 lots to allow for the possibility of 2 new single-family homes. This is a bit of a unique property. The county's divided into 3 different tiers for planning and zoning purposes. This property is at a location that sits in between 2 tiers. I'm trying to zoom out here a little bit. You can see this is located off of Washington School Road. You can see the city limits of Excelsior Springs right here. Washington School Road runs to the northwest of the city limits of Excelsior Springs, and this property is located in 2 of our tiers. So it's located within the urban services tier and the rural low density tier. The urban services tier tends to be the area around the cities, and the rural low density tier is mainly the northern and eastern parts of unincorporated Clay County that tend to be less dense. So the reason the tier is applicable is the urban services tier will tell us that a 10-plus acre lot is acceptable, and the rural low-density tier will tell us that a 5-plus acre lot is acceptable. So with this being right in between those two tiers, the applicant is proposing lots between 5 and 10 acres. And you can also see, we feel that it meets the surrounding area. We have a bunch of lots that are anywhere from 5 to 10 acres already, so we believe we're matching the surrounding neighborhood. Both staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission felt this met the intent of the comprehensive plan and all the regulations in the Land Development Code. The City of Excelsior Springs was notified with a case review file and asked for comments. Planning and zoning staff did not receive any objection or written comments from the City of Excelsior Springs. We typically do that for all cases that are within a mile of the city limits to try to be good neighbors with the cities. This case was noticed in the Courier Tribune, and adjacent property owners were sent certified letters. There are 5 rezoning criteria that each review and decision-making body should consider, and those are start on page 1 of the transmittal that was submitted. The applicant did receive all their outside agency approvals. The purpose of creating these 2 additional lots is obviously to make them where they're buildable lots. So we reach out to the Highway Department to make sure they have access. We reach out to the Water District to make sure water can be served. And we reach out to the Clay County Public Health Center to make sure that each lot can have a septic system. And those approvals were all given. Road impact fees and park impact fees will be assessed at the time of a building permit. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the rezoning preliminary and final plat with the one condition that you can see in Exhibit A. Mr. Ishmael, the applicant, is in attendance tonight, and as part of the transmittal, you have a plat towards the back, an 11 by 17 sheet that shows the 3 lots on the plat that eventually, if approved, would be recorded. I would be happy to answer any questions the commissioners may have, and Mr. Ishmael would be happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Jones? I would entertain a motion for the approval of 2021-28, 29, and 30.
I'll make the motion to accept 2021-28, 29, and 30.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2021, 28, 29, and 30. Discussion? Any questions from the commission?
I don't think so, Commissioner. I think this is this went through the planning and zoning, and it seems to be pretty non-controversial, and there's no opposition, so I feel comfortable moving forward with this.
Thank you. By the way, I do want to make a comment just for this, for a general purpose, and that is that as we go through these items, certainly comments from the public would be in order during the discussion of these items that are on the on our commission session agenda. We have a podium over there. If you do wish to comment on any of these items, please make sure that the light is green when you push the button, identify yourself, and then make comments on the subject at hand. With that, does the applicant have anything he would care to add? He indicates no, he does not. With that, if there's no further comment, please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And thank you for coming in with your application. That brings us to 2021-31. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, 2021-31 pertains to approving the abatement of a dangerous building that's been damaged by fire located at 13915 Rhodus Road, again submitted by Planning and Zoning. I would defer to Planning and Zoning for any comments.
Please proceed.
This is Kip Jones, Planning and Zoning Manager. So there's a property located near Midwest National Air Center that is owned by the county that had a small single-family residence on it. sometime in November or December, that house burned completely, basically. I was notified towards the end of December that the house was burned. Planning and zoning staff, with the help of airport staff, put a temporary construction fence around the building because there is a foundation. We attached some pictures to the submittal of the dangerous building. The planning and zoning staff handles all dangerous buildings that are located in unincorporated Clay County. We have declared this a dangerous building. We are requesting of the commission to allow us to abate or get rid of the dangerous building. The Clay County Highway Department has agreed if planning and zoning pays for a dumpster to be delivered, the Highway Department staff is going to basically load up all the junk and debris into the dumpster, and then we will collapse the foundation and fill in the hole so it is not a fall hazard any longer. Planning and zoning does have a small budget to do things like that, and we would pay for the dumpster out of our dangerous building fund. I would be happy to answer any questions the commissioners may have.
Are there any questions of Mr. Jones? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for 2021-31.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll move that we adopt pass 2021-31.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2021-31. Discussion? Any discussion on this? Mr. Jones, I assume that since we're a little unclear of when the actual incident happened, that it was unoccupied, so thankfully there was no loss of life or injury involved. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Mr. Aiken might be able to shed some light on this, but I believe the sheriff's department used that house for training purposes. And I didn't dig into the investigation of the fire or how it occurred, but I don't think anybody was harmed.
Please, Mr. Sheriff.
Good evening, Commissioners. Sheriff Aiken, Clay County Sheriff's Office. That house was the house that we used for our STAR team, our tactical team. And when it burned down, we were not training that day, so to our knowledge, no one was injured or harmed during the incident. And from what I understand, it's something that just can't be determined on what caused the fire.
The reason I ask, and I realize that was part of what was that the use of that particular property was, but I wanted to make sure that anybody listening, if they had concerns about the possibility of loss or harm to life, that their worries would be alleviated.
We had many good years in that house. It served us well. It's too bad that it burnt down, but I guess it was time to move on.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, then Commissioner Carpenter, it's your motion if you'd like to close.
Thank you. I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes?
Thank you. That brings us to 2021-24. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, 2021-24 is to approve the renewal of the term and supply bid number 27-21 for Rodas Farms agricultural acreage lease at that location. It's a renewal again of an existing relationship. I don't know if anybody's here from the airport or purchasing to speak to that.
Good evening, Commissioners. Robert Smith, I'm the airport manager. This is, the Rodases have an ag lease out of the airport, and we've had them before this. We had a gap in their services. They always do an amazing job. We'd just like to keep that going.
Thank you. It is my understanding that they go above and beyond what their contractual requirements are on a regular basis, so certainly we appreciate that. With that, is there a motion relative to 2021-24?
I'll make the motion to accept 2021-24.
Motion has been made on 2021-24. Discussion. Are there any questions from commissioners on that? Okay. In that case, Commissioner Thompson, if you would like to close,
I'll close.
please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes?
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to 2021-34. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, 2021-34 is to approve an interagency cooperative agreement that would allow for the transfer of a list of surplus equipment from this office, this sheriff's office, to the Wright County Sheriff's Office. I would defer to the sheriff's office for any comments.
Please proceed.
Good evening, Commissioners. Captain Amy Agdarian, Clay County Sheriff's Office. Before you this evening is a request for assistance that comes to us from Sheriff Scott Childers, Ray County. And attached to our information is a letter from him. And he describes the condition of the office and the equipment that he found when he assumed the position of sheriff recently. There are several items that he has requested assistance with if we happen to have any surplus. Specifically, tonight what we're talking about is some office equipment. He's mentioned several other things, and I imagine you might see this letter again if we are able to assist him. But tonight what we're talking about is the possibility of transferring some surplus modular workstations from the Clay County Sheriff's Office to the Ray County Sheriff's Office. Currently, Ray County, their office is a Morton building or a garage, and the pictures that I've seen, it's in complete disrepair. The desks are card tables. It's pretty sad. I mean, it's one county over, and it's not a good representation of law enforcement.
Well, certainly we want to make sure that we help our friends across the county line as much as possible. It sounds like this is a very good thing. Are there any questions of the Sheriff's Department on this issue? With that, is there a motion related to 2021-34?
I'll move that we approve 2021-34.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2021-34. Discussion. As I said, I think it's a good thing that we certainly want to make sure that we are cooperating, especially when it comes to law enforcement. That's a very important part of what we do as government. Commissioner Thompson, did you have anything?
No, I think I'm good with it.
All right. Commissioner Carpenter, if you would like to close.
No, yeah, just so long as if the sheriff's office feels that we've got surplus and that that it's okay to part with it, then I'm good with it. Hopefully, Ray County can, in going forward, figure that out as well on their end. But happy to support it today.
Thank you.
Thanks. I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes?
Thank you. That brings us to 2021-34. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, 2021-35 is to approve a TIPS hotline renewal contract Metro-wide for 2021. And again, would defer to the sheriff's office for comment.
Thank you. I think I said 34. I did mean 35. Thank you for that. Please proceed.
Thank you, Commissioners. Captain Amy Agdarian, Clay County Sheriff's Office. Before you tonight is a request to approve an annual contract with the Kansas City Metropolitan Crime Commission for the access and participation in their TIPS hotline program. The TIPS hotline program provides rewards for information leading to arrest and warrant or indictment, basically catching the bad guys, from calls to the Crime Stoppers TIPS hotline. This is an annual contract. We've been a part of this organization for more years than I can even count. So this is just a request to renew it.
Are there any questions of the Sheriff's Department related to 2021-35? Seeing none, is there a motion on 2021-35?
I'll make the motion to accept 2021-35.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2021-35. Discussion. Seeing none, if you would like to close,
I close.
please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes?
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. 2021-36 has been withdrawn, so we will pass over that. That brings us to 2021-37. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, 2021-37 is to acknowledge Melissa Evans as the Director of Emergency Management in Clay County, and would defer to the Sheriff's Office for further comment.
Mr. Sheriff?
Sheriff Will Aiken, Clay County Sheriff's Office. I just wanted to add a few comments to this part of the agenda. Since June of 2015, I've had the honor of being the Director of Emergency Management for Clay County. I've worked multiple natural disasters, man-made disasters, and helped a lot of our communities within Clay County recover from such incidents. At my side almost the entire time was Melissa Evans, and she started off as an administrative assistant and really took to emergency management in a way I don't think I've ever seen anyone else. And you know, the fortunate thing about emergency management is the training. The majority of it is free or reimbursed, and she took advantage of that. And I mean, she has achieved a lot of things that even myself have not achieved as far as training and certifications. And one of them that I like to tout the most, because she belongs to Clay County, is she is one of roughly 7 master public information officers in the country. And she's here with us in Clay County. Quite the feat. And right now she's currently going through the advanced course at the Emergency Management Institute. And she is actively engaged in Operation Safe, which is a partnership between Cerner, North Kansas City Hospital, and a lot of our other partners in the vaccination program and getting the vaccinations to the people that need it most. So I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce her because, you know, it's something that even for myself, transitioning from something that I really enjoyed, didn't think I would in the beginning, but I've been doing it for 5.5 years. But if you recall, in June of 2015, it was shortly after the flood in Mosby, the county passed a resolution to return the duties and responsibilities of emergency management back to the sheriff's office. And in that resolution, it appointed the position of sheriff as the emergency management coordinator according to Chapter 44 in revised statute of Missouri. But then we would appoint the emergency management director to carry out the daily duties and responsibilities. That position also reports directly to the presiding commissioner, being the chief executive officer, if you will, for the political subdivision, and in this case, Clay County. And that's why I wanted to say all of this, because she would be taking the reins from here, and I, you know, just want to let you know, and yeah, just to express my support for her, and I know she has my complete confidence in being able to carry on the duties and responsibilities of the Emergency Management Director for Clay County.
Thank you very much. Would you like to say anything, or?
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate it. I have had the fortunate opportunity to work with Dr. Aiken, now Sheriff Aiken, and I am excited and appreciate the opportunity to be the Director of Emergency Management for Clay County, and I appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there a motion related to 2021-37?
Commissioner, I move that we approve 2021-37.
Motion has been made on 2021-37 discussion. Yeah, actually, we had I got a little bit of an update, which I appreciate. And I think while the emergency management director does report to the presiding commissioner, I think the tradition has been, and I'm sure it will continue to be, that position also communicates as well with the other associate commissioners, just to make sure everybody is up to speed. And I appreciate the fact that, like I say, you know, we exchanged some information just prior to this meeting related to that subject. So thank you very much for getting off on the right foot. Yes, Mr. Sheriff.
Commissioner Nolte, you really bring up a good point. And, you know, even though over the years those disasters happen to our communities, we've always had a good working relationship with the previous administration when it came to supporting those communities. But I will tell you that from the emergency management coordinator position now, it's going to be extremely pleasant to be able to work with a commission that has the love for the county And it's going to be great working in that capacity and being able to address those incidents when they happen in the future, because they will happen again in the future, but we'll be prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. Commissioner Thompson, did you have anything you would like to say or add?
I do. No, I think this is a terrific choice, and I think Melissa Evans is going to do a wonderful job. And I really look forward to hearing all the great things that's going to come from this position. And she is very qualified, very qualified. I know she's going to do great things. So congratulations, and once we pass this, and I look forward to working with you.
Any other comments from the audience? Seeing none, Commissioner Carpenter, it's your motion, so if you'd like to make any comments and then close, please proceed.
Very good, I close. Thank you.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you, and congratulations. That brings us to 2021-39, Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, 2021-39 is the delivery of the financial statement of the county clerk tax levies and valuations for your consideration for the year ending December 31, 2020. I would defer to the county clerk for any comments.
Please proceed.
This is a resolution that we do every year, and it's the financial statement for the previous year to kind of let you know what kind of shape we're in. And it's on there, you'll see delinquents and audited balances, and this is where we're at today.
Very good. Is there a motion related to 2021-39?
I'll make the motion to accept 2021-39.
Motion has been made on 2021-39. Discussion. Commissioner Carpenter, do you have anything you'd like to ask or to say?
No, thank you, Commissioner.
Any other comment? Seeing none, Commissioner Thompson, any closing comments? And you're free to close.
Now, this is a pretty standard report, and it looks very familiar over the past 6 years. So I have every confidence that our county clerk did a bang-up job on this, and I will close with that.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes?
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to 2021-27. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, 2021-27 is to appoint Greg Knutson to the Zoological District Board.
Thank you.
I defer to the commissioner.
I want to make a comment on this and the next two items that are coming up, just so I don't have to worry about repeating it. Under our new constitution, while the county presiding commissioner does make these appointments, it is with the consultation of the county administrator and on the approval of the county commission. This is a nomination that I'm putting forth, and that all of them are, and I have consulted with the administrator on all three of these. So now, of course, they come before the commission for approval before they are executed with that. I'll just say that I've served with Mr. Knutson on the Zoological Board. This is a reappointment. With that, is there a motion related to 2021-27? I'll go ahead and make that motion since it is a presiding commissioner action. I'll make a motion for the approval of 2021-27 discussion. Do you have anything that you'd like to?
I'm assuming that, and I noticed on all three of these, were they the only applicants that applied for these positions?
Two of them, and I'll address them as we go forward. But certainly on this first one, yes, Mr. Knutson was the only applicant for this. And as I said, he's just completing his previous term, and I believe he is queued up to become the chairman of that body.
I know some of the names do look very familiar, so I believe this was a reappointment. So, okay.
Commissioner Carpenter, did you have anything? I believe there might be comment from someone in the audience. Are there any further comments? Yeah, just go right up to the, and please identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Jim Oldebecken, Mr. Presiding Commissioner. I do wish to ask a question and express a few concerns on this resolution. Mr. Knutson, as many of us know, was the co-chair of the Clay County Constitutional Charter Commission. And during his tenure, boy, they went Mach 2 with their hair on fire. Got it done in 11 meetings in just about a month. There were some hiccups. I have concerns about these. These relate to the Missouri Sunshine Law. I was so concerned. Well, first I was very excited because this is a constitution. and the first in our history in Clay County in 200 years, a momentous event. But specifically, I think there are some open items here. Has anyone heard, there was a report on Facebook by Jennifer Justice that the Missouri Attorney General had opened an investigation regarding concerns, complaints about the Sunshine Law. Has anyone heard if there was a...
Well, the thing is, yeah, you need to, yeah, of course, you're addressing, as you were aware, addressing those the questions to the commission. I can tell you that I don't know the status of that really, so no, that's not something I'm familiar with.
Well, I know that I was the one, or at least one of those who expressed those concerns.
Right.
And I feel that I should be heard on those. I seek to be a good citizen, and I bring today about 25 years of lobbying experience. And it's my pleasure to be involved with government. But I believe that this should be, we should get a definitive answer on this before proceeding with this. This is important. This is the bond of trust and the doorway of trust and participation for citizens in their government. And I'd like to reiterate a comment I made earlier at a previous meeting regarding the benefit of leveraging the training that's available through the Attorney General's office on Sunshine training for anyone that's involved with it. I have other information I can provide directly. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Commissioner, if I could.
Yes, Commissioner Carpenter, please.
I just want to answer the question. I don't personally, because you answered as well, I really have no idea as to whether or not the Missouri Attorney General is looking into that, and would love to know the answer to that as well. So if it becomes more clear to you or anybody else, or if somebody else in the room knows more about it, I'd love to become aware of that as well, for what it's worth.
I've asked the question and have not gotten a response, but maybe they would respond to you.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Let's see, what is my motion? Commissioner Thompson, did you have any questions or thoughts you'd like to express?
No, I think I think basically at this point in time, we would just, as long as county council feels that we can move forward with appointing somebody to this without there being any conflicts or any issues, if there is some kind of pending litigation or investigation.
Go ahead, talk into the mic a
I'm
little bit
sorry.
more. There you go.
As long as there's no concern of this, I think we're fine.
Yeah, I was noticing one person in the audience couldn't hear you, so if you could...
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, I realize the masks make it difficult.
I know, I feel like I'm being smothered in here, just a little. As long as I think county council gives us the direction that if we can move forward with this, if there is some pending litigation or an investigation that is going on, so I know we can't just leave our boards unfilled. We need to make sure those are taken care of.
Mr. Counselor, go ahead and use your mic, please. Oh, there you go.
Is it on? There we go.
There you go.
I'm not aware of any pending litigation, certainly as it relates to the Zoological District Board. Again, my understanding is this is a reappointment. That's probably all I've got to offer. There's no pending litigation that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Commissioner Carpenter, do you have anything you'd like to add or any further questions?
I do not.
Very well. I will just close by saying that I've served with Greg Knutson on the Zoological District Board, and he has been a fierce advocate for the Northland and for us to get our due attention. We are a partner in the Zoological Board. This position is there by virtue of the fact that the voters of this county voted to participate in that we are the only county outside of Jackson County who is participating. And like I say, I feel that Mr. Knutson has done, former Mayor Knutson, I should say, has done a good job in forwarding the interests of Clay County. With that, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter
Yes.
and Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to 2021-32. Mr. Administrator.
2021-32 is to appoint Larry Davis to the Board of Equalization. Commissioner?
I will not go through what I said previously that applies to all these appointments, but I will indicate that Mr. Davis is in fact a reappointment. His resume, his application is attached to the resolution. and he would be appointed for another 3-year term. I think he's done a good job on the board. For those who are unaware, the Board of Equalization is part of the process whereby a citizen who disagrees with the assessment of their property taxes can go forward and make appeals so that they could possibly make their case for a reduction. Hardly anybody makes a case to increase their taxes, certainly, but to come up with something they feel is a bit more in line with their opinions. With that, I make a motion to adopt 2021-32. Discussion. Commissioner Carpenter?
Thank you. So is it a 3-year term? Do I have that right?
Yes, it's a 3-person commission. It is a statutory commission. And so every year, with 3-year terms, 3 members, each one comes up per year.
Each year, yeah. And how many terms has Mr. Davis, I know he's currently serving.
I think, and maybe the clerk has a better memory of this than I do. I know at least one. Has it been 2?
2 terms.
The clerk indicates that he has served 2 terms to date, so this would make his 3rd term.
Very good, thank you.
Commissioner Thompson, did you have any comments or questions?
I think Mr. Davis is a great option here, and I'm glad he's reapplied for this. I've had a great working relationship with him for the past 6 years with the Board of Equalization, and that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Just to clarify Commissioner Thompson's comments, the clerk's office has historically worked closely with BOE, the Board of Equalization, excuse me, I don't mean to use the acronym. So she has probably, of the 3 of us, had the closest working relationship with Mr. Davis. So with that, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Thank you. That brings us to 2021-33. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, 2021-33 is to appoint Matthew Hartwig to the Airport Advisory Board. Commissioner?
Thank you. Yes, I have. I've known Mr. Hardwick for some time. He owns an airplane. He is one of our patrons at the airport. I think he would make a great addition to the airport board. We are in need of another individual, and there is a meeting coming up shortly. So I think his appointment is indeed timely. With that, I make the motion for the approval of 2021-33, and so I'll open that up for discussion. Commissioner Thompson.
I do apologize. I forgot to ask the same question on the previous applicant. Both of these as well. We've only had one individual come forth.
That's my understanding.
Right?
And oh, by the way, Mr. Hartwig's application is also attached. I don't. Does the clerk know if any other applicants came in? None that I'm aware of.
I think this is going to be the last one.
Okay. So I don't believe there was any other. Excuse me?
Only one.
Only one. Thank you, Mr. Administrator. So please proceed.
That
was
was
it?
all I had. Yeah. Just
Commissioner Carpenter?
No, thanks.
Okay. Any other discussion from members of the public? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to the last item on our agenda for the commission session. That is 2021 Ordinance 1. Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, 2021 Ordinance 1 is to approve ordinance modifications on the previously submitted ordinance. Commissioner.
Thank you. This is an item that I had put up. We've been kicking this one around a little bit. What I wanted to do tonight was to go through kind of what's going on with it. This is kind of the latest, this is sort of the latest version of it. What I would like to do would be to have it discussed and then bring it to a vote at our next meeting so the commissioners have time to consider it and to, if they would care to propose amendments. I really wanted to make sure that as it is an ordinance that we were able to really do a thorough job of making sure all commissioners were familiar and were good with where we were going with this. One thing that I would like to do before we get started is I would like to propose a technical amendment. On the next to the last page, there's a bracketed out B, the invocation shall be received. The brackets, of course, indicate that that language is to be deleted. Following that, on the last page, we have C, items may be placed on the consent agenda. I would like to make a motion for the technical change to change the C under items to B. Since B is deleted, that means that we would be skipping a letter of the alphabet. So, like I say, that's a technical change just to kind of clean it up a little bit before we go forward. So I'd like to propose that amendment. Does the clerk have that amendment satisfactorily?
Yes.
Very well. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
That brings us to 2021 Ordinance 1 as amended. I'm just going to take a moment to go through, and I'm just going to do a real bullet point thing on this as far as what we've got here, then take questions, and then if there are any, and of course, discussion. And then with the permission of the commission, I would like to move this to our next meeting agenda for a actual consideration and a vote. Beginning on the first page, we are in section 30.16. The first three A, B, and C letters are deleted. Those are the ones that basically delineate a specific meeting on the first Thursday of each month in the evening at 7 p.m., which is in fact what we're doing. I am deleting that because we're going to be moving, I believe, towards regular evening meetings, so this is rather redundant. Also, it is a little bit too specific. We need to be able to have some flexibility, whether we start at 6 or 7. I would just like to be able to have the commission consider when those evening meetings should be. That brings us to new language. And by the way, anybody who is following up there, the language that is in brackets is to be deleted. The language that is in bold type is new copy. So under A, the new A, what I'm proposing is that we have 4 commission meetings per month, and that 2 be held in the evening, and that they be divided into work and business sessions. B on that, it basically delineates what a work session would comprise of, and broadly speaking, that would be where we would be doing the research. So we would take a proposal, we would consider it, discuss it, and the vote, generally speaking, would be one to move it to the next agenda. So the idea would be that we would consider it at one session, and then we would have roughly a week, depending on how the schedule went, to be able to consider it further, and for the public to be able to consider it and have any reactions they would like to share with the commission, so that would be available. C is a business session, which those would be also public meetings, and at those sessions we would take up only issues except in specific and special circumstances that had been considered in the work session. We would then take them up to vote, not unlike how I'm trying to work it here with Ordinance 1. That is, this would be the equivalent of a work session on this issue. Next week we would go ahead and to consider it and take it for vote, and that would be in the character of a business session. We also have a combined session, which is pretty much what we do now. I think we're better off going to the work business session, but I did want to make sure that we retained the option of having combined session under specific circumstances to be able to function in that way. Number E has to do with executive sessions, and that's been something that I've had a lot of concerns about. We certainly want to make sure that we are in compliance with Missouri Chapter 610, which is the chapter that deals with sunshine and open meetings. The changes that I'm proposing on this broadly are that the county councilor will prepare and distribute a tentative agenda to commissioners and to the county administrator. The idea behind that is twofold. Firstly, when we vote to go into executive session, in my view, we are basically saying, yes, these are appropriate subjects under law that are qualified to be in executive session. Without a list, we're kind of voting in a blind way. The other The other purpose that comes to mind on this is that when we go into an executive session, it's a way to prevent it from being essentially what could become an open mic. So we can't go in to discuss a specific subject and then just open it up to other subjects, so that there is some way for the commission to prepare for that, and those items would be given to the county councilor 48 hours prior to the meeting, so that there is a chance to consider. The reason that we have the county councilor preparing that agenda is he at the moment, but he or she would be the most qualified person to make render a judgment on whether or not it would be in compliance. Any commissioner who objects to the inclusion of an item on the executive session will have their objection noted in the minutes of that meeting, and that is important because we have in the past not afforded respect due to a person holding a minority opinion. I think it's important that the minority opinion be noted and recorded in a way that will be most enlightening as far as our actions go. And then, of course, the county councilor shall be responsible for the preparation of the executive session minutes. That's a very important part of it, because we need to be able to, once again, those meeting minutes need to be accessible for any number of reasons. There's some other items in here, mainly about restating that all meetings must be in compliance with Missouri Sunshine Law. Section 30.24 are commission sessions. We've added a couple of, we've changed, I should say, I've proposed that we change a couple of things. We've moved discussion items up a little sooner on the agenda. We have added a new number 10, which is consent agenda. The consent agenda would be items of a non-controversial nature. And in fact, there's a description later on at the end of this statement about what that would constitute. So I will come back to that when we get to that section. Then we have regular items on the agenda. And some of the brackets and whatnot are basically ways to reorder the numbering so that it falls in the correct order. We are deleting comments on agenda items. That is largely redundant because we have comment on agenda items at the time they are discussed. It always struck me as odd that we would take up items on the agenda, vote on them, and then ask for comment. I think your comments need to come prior to our vote. It just seems a bit like after the horse has left the barn, shutting the door. We obviously are retaining comments on non-agenda items, so that will be retained. We have, it is also proposed that we add county administrator comments and commissioner comments. So that would allow both the administrator and each commissioner to express their thoughts on any number of issues. We have deleted letter B, which had to do with the invocation. It is largely pointless to have that there. It's unnecessarily restricting. One of the things that struck me was that it is said that the county administrator shall, or designee shall, do the invocation. I think we need to have the ability to have other guests possibly do the invocation. So I mean, there's no reason for this rather lockstep version of it. And then we have item C, which is a description of consent agenda items. When we have our items on consent agenda, any member may move to have an item moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. That would not require a vote. If they decide to remove it altogether from the agenda, that would be a different matter. But as I said, these would be issues that had no controversy attached to them. And we do come up with a number of those, and that would allow us to be able to move through a little bit more quickly, particularly if we take up a number of items in a work session. When we go to a business session, there may well be some items that have no controversy attached to them whatsoever, and that would allow us to deal with them in a more efficient manner. As I say, the safeguard is any commissioner may move to have an item taken from consent agenda to regular agenda. And that concludes a lot of what's going on here in 2021 Ordinance 01 as amended. With that, I'll ask for any discussion from the commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I really appreciate these changes. I think they make a lot of sense. You know, we share a common background in terms of service in the legislature, and when committees were run as well as they could be, these were generally the rules that they would follow, especially things like having a week in between discussion of the topic and actually voting on it so that, you know, there's time to further study the issue. What you're doing with consent agenda, et cetera. So support it a lot, really appreciate it. I would seek clarification. You know, we talked earlier about having the meetings in the evening. Under A, you have it as having 4 per month, typically 2 held in the evening, and then it's sort of ambiguous as to when the other 2 would be held. So I just would want some clarity on that.
I appreciate those comments, and yeah, I didn't think to, because the day ones are so, I don't know, so much a matter of course, but yeah, what I would contemplate and whether we would need to specify, I would leave up to possibly an opinion from the county councilor, but certainly what I'm contemplating is 2 daytime and 2 evening meetings, so however the language needs to be sculpted to make that the most efficient way. I did want to leave some wiggle room in the event that, well, for instance, when we get into December and we get into the Christmas season, there may well be some reason to be able to move them about a little bit. And I didn't want to necessarily have to move to suspend the rules, but by and large, I think that is the direction we need to go. So I appreciate your comments.
Okay, and so in terms of doing the 2 daytime meetings a month, I guess I would just want more thoughts as to why we would do that rather than just having a consistent evening meeting, both from the perspective of consistency so that folks know when the meetings are, but then also, you know, to my earlier point of accessibility with work times and whatnot.
Well, one of the reasons, and it had occurred to me, of course, most municipalities have their meetings in the evening, with the exception of Kansas City, but for certainly City of Liberty, City of Gladstone, they have evening meetings. The concern I had was on a couple of levels that we have a mixture of the meetings. One was that consideration for staff, because it may well end up being something of a hardship if we have too many evening meetings. It also struck me that it might afford more opportunity for citizens. So if we had a mixture, you know, in the event of, just say for the sake of argument, somebody had an evening job, they worked the evening shift, they would have the ability to come in and hear the discussions that we have here. And since we would have most issues of any importance would have 2 different meetings, if those meetings, one was day and one was evening, that I think gives the maximum flexibility for a citizen to come in and hear those deliberations.
All right, I appreciate that, and that, you know, that does make sense, and I greatly appreciate you know, all workers, including those who don't just have a 9 to 5. You know, it does seem though to me that certainly the majority of working people, nowhere near all, but on any given day, it's going to be more people have a 9 to 5 than are working an evening shift.
True.
And so I guess I've given my commitment to enough people over time that I was going to advocate for doing these meetings in the evening. And so I'm just going to continue to advocate for that, and that would be my preference. If it's the will of the commission to do a combination, obviously, you know, that's not anywhere near the end of the world. That's perfectly fine. We'll make that work. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at on it. So, but I really do appreciate these changes. Thanks.
Well, and the thing is, it's important to have the discussion and the exchange. One of the things that concerned me, and that I bracketed out, the language at the beginning was, it specified 7 p.m. I think we need to have the flexibility to be able to maybe meet earlier. It would be easier on staff. Perhaps it would be easier on the public, but I think we need to have the ability to gauge what is most responsive to the needs of our citizens.
I totally agree, and I tend to agree. It seems to me maybe 6 would be better than 7, just because it's a little earlier, get people home sooner, and it still, I think, allows for people to travel after work. So I agree with not putting in a locked-in time into into the ordinance here. But in terms of what we actually choose to do as the commission, I would be perfectly fine with 6, so.
And by the way, I realize to some extent I'm perhaps talking this thing to death, but I want to make sure that both commissioners feel perfectly free to propose amendments. That's why I wanted to give the time elements so that you would have time to consider alternatives and to put them in a form that you feel would present the idea best. Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I agree. I think once we get this taken care of, this will give us some consistency, and citizens will know what to expect when they come to a commission meeting and when it will be. I don't have any problems with making these daytime and evening meetings. I can see the confusion. I can agree with Commissioner Carpenter on this. I think we need to I wish we could get some more citizen input.
Could you, into the mic just a
Sorry.
bit more, please?
I will talk louder into the microphone. I'll get very close. Okay, so if we could get some, I don't know what's the best way to get some more citizen input, because from what I've heard from citizens as well, the ones that come to me, they like the idea of an evening meeting because they can't attend after work. But I understand that there's people who then work evenings and nights in a daytime meeting. I don't know what's the best tactic for us to get some more input. And I know with live streaming and making this accessible for people to attend, they can look at this meeting in 2 days from now. If they've got a free time, they could, drink a bottle of wine and eat a barbecue sandwich and check us out and see what we're doing. And I think that's nice. But I know there's people who like to come here and they would like to talk to us in person and have their voices heard. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. So I think we need to have some discussion on what would really truly be the best to move forward with that. Most of the layout here looks pretty good to me. My only concern is, I know we did the voting of the absentation and the recusal of an associate commissioner.
That's already been done.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
in non-bold print because that was somebody took up
The amended
some weeks ago.
language is not added in. That's the only thing I'm concerned about.
Oh, okay, is it not updated? So I would need to make sure that the next version has the modernized, because I think you might be right. I think I might have picked that up from a previous version. So thank you. That would be a technical correction that we would, I think would probably as well to make when we redraft with the amendment that's been added. So, if staff would, if Mr. Administrator, staff could make that technical change, I think that's a good one that Commissioner Thompson observes. By the way, I just want to make sure, do we have Commissioner Carpenter, does that, I'm trying to get consensus so that we can just instruct instead of go through a formal vote of just having that technical amendment adapted, that technical change adapted.
Oh, of course, yeah. Sounds good to me.
Very good. So Mr. Administrator, if you could make sure that we make that correction, which was no doubt my mistake. Commissioner Thompson, please proceed.
Well, I think everything else looks pretty standard, and this is the way the meetings were done once
Yes.
upon a time before we've made a million changes to them. So I feel pretty comfortable with this. I think it's mainly just finding a time that our citizens can attend. I don't know what the best answer for that is. If we just choose, say we start with evenings, and if we start getting some feedback from people saying that they don't feel comfortable.
I'm sorry, you're fading still.
Sorry.
That's okay.
If citizens would like to have, we may need to come back and revisit this, is my point, is basically, so if we pick a time and a day, it may need to be brought back up and we need to shift it to another morning meeting added in, or there's just more discussion there, but I'm open to options.
I think that's what we need to do, is to make sure that we're responsive to our citizens. The other thing is there is no effective date in this particular document, and that was because I wanted to make sure that before we started talking about that all commissioners felt comfortable with it, not just whether or not we adopt this, but also what the timeline is. My recommendation is we would either start the third week in February or perhaps March 1st, depending on how quickly we're able to come to an agreement on how to put this together. And like I said, I hope that it's flexible enough to where we can make adjustments without having to go through the process of revisiting the ordinance, but being able to just work within that in our own scheduling. Okay, Mr. Counselor.
May I make a suggestion, perhaps? Or a comment?
Just a moment. Were you indicating you couldn't hear? Did you want to make?
If there's a time for a comment, I have a comment.
Yes, after the counselor. Yeah, go ahead and make your way to the podium, and I'll call on you next, sir. Mr. Counselor.
Just as an observation, this is an ordinance. The real technical things like what day we meet, what time we meet, doesn't have to be in an ordinance. That you guys can
Right.
operationally just come to consensus on when that'll be. But so one thought is, you may want to pass this sooner, but then kind of evolve through when makes the most sense. And to that, I might suggest on A, where it says typically 2 held in the evening,
Yes.
if we change that to typically at least 2 held in the evening, then you don't have to come back and just technically rework your ordinances if you choose to meet more often in the meeting. In the evening, is a suggestion.
I think that does, I think that does make sense, because we do need to be able to, I think we have to have flexibility, but on the other hand, I do think we need to make sure that when we do start establishing this time period, that we are able to stick with it and make sure that that happens. I believe there's a comment from a member of the public.
Thank you. My name is Jim Oldebecken still. I just want to say this is awesome to hear your deliberation and your concern about this matter. It's delightful. Thank you. Sheriff Aiken talked about the love of the county. We love you back. And I hope this can be an ongoing process. It may be useful to keep track of our results, metrics in terms of the number of individuals, who do come and attend these meetings or other county meetings, and then additionally number of comments, and then just a continual process, just like several of you mentioned. I think it'll be great. It'll be wonderful to see the progress over time. Thank you. Oh, one
Yes,
more
sir.
thing. I had a sideline career in video production, and I have noticed that there are, and thank you very much for the telecast of this, and I think it's wonderful and moving in a very good direction, but I believe that there's some other potential low-hanging fruit in terms of production quality, in terms of how well the people that are viewing can see and hear. And it doesn't have to take it doesn't require a big investment. It's just, I think, some technical matters. But it's worth looking at. Some of the other cities, in particular, Kansas City, Missouri, does a superb job. I'm sure there's different resources, but it's just something to also look at and track over time and periodically seek feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I do want to appreciate the opportunity to acknowledge the staff that has been doing the great technical job of live streaming, of archiving, and all the rest of the technical advantages that we're able to work with to make sure that more citizens see what's going on either at the time or certainly be able to view the archives. Something that I think is worth saying is that that staff is in fact working diligently to expand those capabilities that we have, and so this is an ongoing process, and I'm sure they appreciate your acknowledgement of their efforts. And as good as we are, I think that the staff will certainly exceed where they are now, so I certainly want to express my appreciation for those who are behind the curtain, so to speak, and making magic happen on this. So very much appreciated their efforts. Are there any other comments or any other discussion on 2021 Ordinance 1 as amended? Seeing none, Mr. Counselor, I don't know that I need to necessarily make a motion, but can I just get a consensus from the commission that we move this to our next meeting agenda for
I
consideration?
think that's fine.
Do I have consensus to go forward with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. So 2021 Ordinance 1 as amended will come up on our next meeting. And as I say, certainly I want to make sure that commissioners feel free to make any observations or suggestions going forward on this. That brings us to discussion items. There are no items on for discussion. Comments on agenda items, and I'm going to go through this kind of quick because it's always struck me as a little repetitious. Are there any comments on agenda items that would be items that we were on our agenda tonight that we have discussed? Are there any public comments on agenda items? Seeing none. Commissioner comments on agenda items? Seeing none. Are there any office holder comments on agenda items? Seeing none. Are there any other agency comments on agenda items? Seeing none. This brings us to comments on non-agenda items. These are items that were not covered under this evening's agenda, but that would have some, but if someone has reason to comment, are there any public comments on non-agenda items? Seeing none. Are there any commissioner comments on non-agenda items? Seeing none. Office holder comments on non-agenda items? I see none. Other agency comments on non-agenda items? Seeing none. That brings us to approval of minutes of previous sessions. There are none listed for this evening's meeting. That brings us to written reports. If the clerk would like to present on that.
Yes, I believe in your packets that you have each received, you should have a auditor's cash basis monthly report for January 2021 and the clerk's monthly report on revenues and fees for January of '21.
Thank you. I believe the commissioners have those in their agenda packets. That brings us to executive, are there any other written reports from any other departments before I go forward? Okay, seeing none. Executive sessions, we have none listed for this evening. That brings us to recess and adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.